There are ancient achievements that we still can't match with our modern tools. With our knowledge, this video is going to look at 20 of those engineering marvels. Things built by civilizations that didn't have computers, that didn't have cranes, and yet they built monuments that our own engineers today can't figure out. They can't replicate. Those civilizations carried secrets, and those secrets vanished with them. By the end, you'll see the past differently, not as a simple timeline, but as a gallery of brilliant, unanswered questions. It makes you wonder, are we really the pinnacle of progress, or are we just catching up? Catching up to whispers from a world that's been forgotten. Those secrets only start to make sense when you leave our world behind. The world of instant answers, of digital precision. The ancient world worked on a different logic, one built from watching the world, from tradition, from a deep, spiritual kind of relationship with the materials of the earth. These builders, they didn't have manuals, they didn't have computer designs. Their blueprints were in memory, passed down in songs, in stories, in the precise movement of stars and sun across the sky. You'd lay a temple's foundation not just on level ground, but on a line from the rising sun on the longest day. A city's layout could be a map of the stars. A belief made permanent in stone. This was engineering as a conversation, a dialogue between human ambition and the stubborn reality of rock and river and time. Every project had a dual purpose, a pyramid, an aqueduct. It had to function, to provide water or defense or a sacred space, but it also had to mean something. The weight of a stone block wasn't just a logistical challenge, it was a testament to a king's power. The precision of an alignment wasn't just geometry. It was a prayer made visible, a way to tether the earthly realm to the divine. That mindset changes everything. It means we're not looking at crude attempts that stumbled into perfection. We're looking at the peak achievements of entire intellectual traditions, traditions that saw the universe through a lens we've mostly lost. They solved problems we still struggle with. Not in spite of their different worldview, but because of it. Their trial and error spanned generations, a master builder teaching an apprentice who would one day teach their own child. Each one adding a fragment of hard-won knowledge. That long, patient accumulation of skill is almost foreign to us now, in our era of rapid innovation. So when you stand before a structure that defies understanding, you're not just facing a technical puzzle. You're witnessing the final, silent statement of a conversation that lasted centuries. A conversation between a culture and its gods, its rulers, its environment, its own limitless imagination. To decode the marvel, you have to learn to listen. For the echoes of that lost dialogue, that final, silent statement from a lost civilization is irreplicable. That word, irreplicable, it carries more weight than you might think. To say we can't replicate an ancient marvel today, it's not just a statement about our tools, it's a confession about the limits of our understanding. We live in an age of synthetic diamonds and 3D printed organs. We can simulate galaxies, so what could stop us from building something our ancestors built with copper chisels and rope? The answer is in the layers of that word. Irreplaceability isn't one single lock, it's a series of interlocking doors, and we've lost the keys to most of them. The first layer is lost technique, the craft knowledge that vanished when the last master artisan died, the exact recipe for Roman concrete that gets stronger in seawater. The precise sequence of hammer strikes to shape granite with a dolerite stone, the forgotten method for creating a flawless lens from a lump of quartz. We can analyze the end product, but we can't reconstruct the living process, the dance of the hands that made it. The second layer is material. Some ancient builders used resources we can't access anymore. Not because they're gone, but because the specific source is lost. The particular pink granite from a quarry abandoned for millennia. the clay from a sacred riverbank now silted over, or materials that were themselves engineered like Damascus steel. Its nanostructure came from ores and forging methods we can't fully trace. We might have a stronger alloy, but we can't make that one. Then there's scale and labor. We could theoretically build another great pyramid. We have cranes and trucks, but could we organize the project as the Egyptians did? Mobilizing tens of thousands not as an anonymous workforce, but as a rotating national service, a community effort tied to the Nile's flood cycle and the pharaoh's divine mandate. The modern cost to replicate that human endeavor with its specific cultural motivation is unimaginable. It would be a hollow copy, missing its soul. Next is precision. This is perhaps the most baffling layer. How builders achieved near-perfect alignments and seamless joints with what we consider primitive tools. A machinist today needs a laser level to achieve what an Inca stonemason did with a river cobble and sand. That precision was functional, spiritual, symbolic. Replicating the shape is easy. Replicating that craftsmanship with the same simple tools is a feat of skill we've let atrophy. Finally, the layer of holistic context. An ancient temple wasn't an isolated building. It was a node in a living network. Its alignment captured the solstice sun, which illuminated a specific statue during a specific festival, witnessed by a community that shared a specific belief. The acoustics were designed for a specific chant. The materials were chosen for their symbolic color, their connection to a local deity. We can build a physical replica on another continent. But we can't replicate the mountain it sits upon, or the culture that breathed life into it, or the worldview that made every stone placement a sacred act. That's the true meaning of irreplicable. The object we see today is just the fossil, the hardened skeleton of a vast, living organism of knowledge, belief, and social order that has gone extinct. We can admire the bone, we can even make a plastic cast of it, but we can't bring the creature back to life. So as we explore these marvels, remember, we're not just looking at old, impressive things. We're looking at the ghosts of entire systems of thought and their silent, enduring challenge to our modern certainty. That challenge to our modern certainty, it has a physical form, a lump of corroded bronze pulled from the seafloor. In 1900, sponge divers were working off the coast of a Greek island, Antikythera. They found a shipwreck. Among the statues and pottery, there was this object, heavily encrusted about the size of a large book. For decades, it sat in a museum drawer. They thought it might be a navigational instrument, an astrolabe maybe. It was a mystery, a footnote. Then researchers looked closer. They used X-rays, advanced imaging. And the truth came out. It turned history and science completely upside down. This wasn't a simple tool. It was a machine, an impossibly complex machine from a time before such things were supposed to exist. We call it the Antikythera Mechanism. It was crafted in the 2nd century BCE. It is, without exaggeration, the world's first known analog computer. Its purpose was to model the cosmos, to predict the movement of the sun, the moon, the planets, to forecast eclipses with remarkable precision, all inside a wooden case. You turned a hand crank, and it was driven by a maze of over 30 interlocking bronze gears. These gears weren't crude, they were precision-cut, triangular teeth, arranged in sophisticated trains to perform calculations that would take a mathematician with pen and paper a long time. The device knew the Metonic cycle. That's a 19-year period that aligns lunar months with the solar year. It tracked the Saros cycle, an 18-year rhythm of eclipses. It even accounted for the moon's irregular orbit. It used a clever pin and slot gear to simulate its variable speed. This was astronomy, mechanical engineering, intricate craftsmanship, all fused into one portable device. The shock of this discovery is hard to overstate. For a long time, the narrative of technological progress was clear, linear. The pinnacle of ancient Greek science was philosophical, mathematical. Thinkers like Archimedes, complex geared machinery like this wasn't supposed to appear until the great cathedral clocks of medieval Europe, over 1,000 years later. The Antikythera Mechanism shatters that timeline. It tells us that in the workshops of the Hellenistic world, a level of mechanical genius was flourishing. And history simply forgot. This wasn't a prototype. The craftsmanship is too refined, the design too elegant. It suggests a tradition, a school of thought that has left no other surviving examples. Its existence implies lost libraries of knowledge, workshops full of similar devices that were looted, melted down, lost to time. And this is where the irreplaceability becomes tangible. Modern teams have used CT scans, the finest tools, to build working models. We understand its principles. We can decode its inscriptions, its user manual, etched in tiny Greek letters on the bronze plates. But could a modern craftsperson, using only the tools available in the 2nd century BCE, recreate it from scratch? The answer is a humbling probably not. The knowledge required goes beyond the gear ratios. It encompasses the metallurgy, to cast such fine bronze components without flaws, the geometry, to design the complex gear trains without computer-aided design. The patience and skill to hand-cut each tooth to a tolerance that would allow 30 gears to mesh smoothly for a lifetime of use. It represents a peak of artisan skill. The product of a specific culture at a specific moment, a pinnacle that eroded when that civilization faded. So this corroded artifact is more than a marvel. It is a ghost in the machine of history, a whisper from an alternate path of technological development that was cut short. It forces a single question onto every historian and engineer who studies it. A haunting question. If this survived by pure chance at the bottom of the sea, what other wonders of the ancient world have we lost forever? What other chapters in the story of human ingenuity are missing from our book? The answer to what we've lost might be in Central America, not a machine, a shape, a perfect sphere, hundreds of them in the river deltas of Costa Rica. Buried under jungle for centuries, the Diquís spheres, some are melon-sized, others are over 2 meters across, 15 tons. They are carved from granodiorite, a hard volcanic rock. And they are mathematically perfect. The sphericity is astonishing. No precision tools, no lasers, yet the surface deviates by millimeters. This wasn't an accident. It was a tradition. Creating one was a process we can only guess at. First, a boulder was chosen. Workers pecked at it with harder stones, slowly defining the shape. Then grinding it with sand and water, endless grinding. Some think they used heat, heating the stone, then cooling it quickly to weaken the surface, but that's a theory. Because here's the first gap. We've found the spheres, often in groups, in alignments, but we've never found the workshops, no quarries with half-finished spheres. No tools left behind. It's as if they just appeared, fully formed. Then the second puzzle, transportation. Some spheres were miles from the nearest stone source. The culture that made them lasted from around 300 CE until the Spanish came. They didn't use the wheel, no draft animals, no metal tools for this work. So how did they move a 16-ton ball through swamp and up hills? The answer is probably leverage, rollers, log sledges, ropes made from vines, the coordinated labor of many people. Inching them into place, but there's no clear path left, no road, the feet left almost no trace. Then the purpose, why? The spheres were arranged in lines. Triangles, groupings that seem deliberate, some align with cardinal directions, some might mark celestial events, the solstice sunrise. They might have marked social rank. The largest spheres near the most important leaders, or they could have been sacred. The circle as the cosmos, unity, the sun, we don't know. The people left no written records. Conquest and disease severed the memory, so the spheres stand silent. Their perfection is a language we can measure but not translate. modern machinery can make a perfect stone sphere easily. A diamond-tipped lathe can do in hours what took them years, but that's not the point. The marvel isn't the product alone, it's the chain, the intention. The skill, the community effort, using only what the earth provided, to conceive of geometric perfection, to hold that ideal in the mind, and then to coax it out of a mountain. With stone and sand and water and human will, they're monuments to an idea so compelling a culture devoted generations to making it real, then they vanished. Leaving these flawless, silent questions in stone. That geometric perfection in granite is one kind of mastery, but there's another kind, defined by impossible angles. High above Cusco, in the Andes, there's Sacsayhuamán. The name is a mouthful, the walls are something else, they're not straight barriers, they zigzag. Like the teeth of a giant stone puma, and the blocks they're made from defy belief. Limestone megaliths, some weigh over 100 tons, that's 20 elephants. And they're not just stacked, they're woven together. This is polygonal masonry, advanced. Each block is a unique polygon, 6 sides, 12 sides, cut and dressed with staggering accuracy. The joints between them are virtually invisible. You can't slide a razor blade in, not even paper, no mortar, no cement. The whole structure relies on the perfect embrace of one stone against another. Now the context, the Inca Empire, no draft animals, no horses, no oxen. They didn't use the wheel for transport, no iron tools, no steel chisels, no pulleys or cranes. Yet they quarried these titanic stones from miles away, transported them up and down steep mountain valleys, lifted them into position, fitting each one into a 3-dimensional stone puzzle. A puzzle that's lasted centuries. The logistics are a mystery. It humbles modern project managers. It speaks of a society capable of extraordinary coordination. A rotating labor force, probably a communal duty, moving stones with ropes, levers, earthen ramps, and raw human strength. The sound must have been a constant, low thunder. Stone grinding on stone, hundreds of workers chanting, pulling in unison. But the true genius isn't just the assembly, it's the resilience. This region is one of the most seismically active on Earth. Earthquakes are frequent, powerful. Modern buildings with rigid steel frames crack and collapse. These ancient, mortarless walls have endured quake after quake for over 500 years. They dance with the earth. The intricate, interlocking joints let the stones shift slightly, settle, absorb and dissipate the tremor's energy, then settle back into perfect alignment. It's a masterpiece of seismic-resistant design. Engineers today study it with awe. Only now, with advanced materials and computer modeling, are we beginning to approach such elegant solutions for living with tectonic forces. The final mystery is the how. How did they achieve such flawless cuts? The prevailing theory involves hammering with harder stones, endless grinding with abrasive sand and water. But some surfaces have a slight glassy sheen, a peculiar smoothness that's led to enduring speculation. Could the Inca have known a method to temporarily soften the stone? Maybe a plant-based chemical solution or focused sunlight to make the surface more malleable for fitting. It's a lost technique if it ever existed. And that's the heart of its irreplaceability. We could, with diamond-tipped saws and GPS-guided cranes, create a visually identical wall, but to do it their way. To solve the same problem with the same limited toolkit, to achieve that perfect, earthquake-proof fit through skill and observation alone, that feat remains locked in the past. These walls aren't just a fortress, they're a 3-dimensional textbook of a lost engineering philosophy, one that understood stone not as an inert material, but as a partner. In a conversation with a living, moving earth, that dialogue with stone shifts to a conversation with metal. There's a courtyard in Delhi. A quiet giant stands there. The iron pillar, over 23 feet tall, 7 meters, forged in the 4th century, That's over 1600 years ago, and it hasn't rusted. Not in the way you'd think. In a city with extreme heat, heavy rains, and modern pollution, this ancient iron should be a crumbling orange ruin. Instead, it has this thin, dark patina. A protective cloak. It's kept the pillar intact while empires came and went around it. This isn't just old, it's a metallurgical miracle. It defies the nature of iron. The secret is in the material and in the making. Modern analysis shows it's not an alloy like stainless steel. It's wrought iron, remarkably pure, but its composition is the key. It has a very high amount of phosphorus and a very low amount of sulfur. That specific recipe wasn't an accident. It was a choice made by master smiths who understood their materials. An intuitive, empirical understanding. They selected specific ores. They controlled their forging temperatures with a precision we can only guess at. They hammer-welded smaller pieces into this single, massive column. The process created a unique crystalline structure, and then exposure to the air over centuries did something. That high phosphorus allowed the pillar to develop a passive layer, a thin, stable film of iron-hydrogen phosphate on the surface. This layer is self-healing. It protects the metal underneath from oxygen and moisture. It's a shield that time helped forge. Today, we get similar corrosion resistance with stainless steel. But we add chromium, a different element, a different method. The ancient Indian approach was a distinct path to the same result, a path we haven't fully remapped. We can analyze the pillar, we know its chemical signature, but knowing the recipe isn't the same as knowing the technique, the exact sequence of heating, hammering, and cooling. The specific local ores that gave that perfect phosphorus balance, the ambient conditions of its first years that started the patination, those variables are lost. That's the core of its irreplaceability. A modern metallurgist could, in a lab, create an iron alloy with matching phosphorus. They could even try to forge a similar column. But could they replicate the entire cultural and environmental process that produced this specific artifact? The one in Delhi? The answer is no. That pillar isn't just a piece of metal. It's the product of a specific tradition of knowledge, interacting with a specific place, over a specific span of time measured in millennia. It's a monument to a deep, hands-on understanding of material behavior. An understanding gained not through electron microscopes, but through generations of observation and refined craft. It stands as a silent challenge, a reminder that advanced science can wear the humble face of a blacksmith's hammer. And that some of the most durable wonders weren't built to dominate the landscape, but to quietly, stubbornly endure it. Endurance in metal is one thing. But then there's a masterpiece drawn on the earth itself, a canvas so vast you can only see it from the sky. In the dry plains of southern Peru, the Nazca Desert holds one of archaeology's most perplexing galleries. The Nazca Lines, these aren't small carvings, they're geoglyphs, enormous designs etched right into the rocky ground. Some are simple, clean lines, straight as a laser for miles across the desert floor. Others form complex shapes, a hummingbird with a beak longer than a bus, a spider, its legs curving with anatomical precision, a monkey with a spiraled tail. These figures are monumental, some over 300 meters across, yet they were created by a culture with no flight. No balloons, no aircraft. The people who made them, the Nazca culture, they flourished from around 100 BC to 600 CE. They walked the earth looking up at the same sky we do. They could never have seen their own work in its entirety. So how did they do it, and more importantly, why? The technique on the surface seems simple enough. The desert there has a dark surface layer, pebbles coated in iron oxide. Underneath is a lighter, sandy soil. The Nazca people, by removing that top layer of stones, created a stunning contrast. They carved by subtraction, but that simplicity is deceptive. Maintaining a straight line for a few meters is easy. Keeping it arrow straight for a kilometer, over hills and dry riverbeds, that's a feat of surveying. It baffles engineers. The proportionality is another layer of genius. From the ground, you're standing on a line that seems to wander. You have no sense of the spider's form you're helping to create. The design had to be scaled up from a small model. With perfect fidelity, every curve, every angle translated across a vast distance without distortion. How? Researchers believe they used a system of stakes and ropes. A master design, maybe laid out small, could be broken into segments. Teams would drive stakes along the plotted points, using sight lines to maintain alignment. It would require meticulous coordination, a shared mental blueprint held by the community's artists, by its overseers. The straight lines might have been created by aligning two distant markers. Like mountain peaks and clearing the path between them, walking that path, keeping the markers in constant view to stay on course. That demands not just skill, but an intimate, generational knowledge of the local topography. The desert was their graph paper and the horizon their ruler. The purpose is the deeper mystery. Why invest such immense, communal effort into art you cannot see? The theories are as varied as the lines themselves. Some suggest astronomical alignments, connecting the figures to solstices or constellations. Others propose they were sacred pathways, walked during rituals to invoke water from the gods in this arid land. The spider, for instance, is a symbol of rain in some Andean traditions. The hummingbird, a creature of vitality. Perhaps they were offerings, messages to deities who viewed the earth from above, a form of communication not meant for human eyes but for the eyes of the sky. This is where the irreplaceability takes root. We could today use GPS drones to plot and create a perfect replica in another desert, but that misses the point entirely. The marvel is not the image, it's the act of creation within a specific cultural and spiritual framework. It's the ability of a society to commit to a vision that no single member would ever witness completed. To work for generations on a communal prayer made visible only from the heavens, the knowledge system that guided them, the artistry, the surveying, the astronomy, the theology, it's fragmented. We have the lines, but we've lost the liturgy that gave them meaning. They are a testament to human capacity for collective purpose, a purpose so powerful it could shape a landscape into a message whose full text we are still learning to read. The Great Pyramid of Giza, a structure of pure geometry built by human hands. For thousands of years it's been measured, studied, mythologized, and with every new survey another layer of mystery appears. Its precision isn't just impressive, in some ways it's unnerving. The base is a near-perfect square, each side over 750 feet long. The leveling of that foundation is so exact, the corners vary in height by less than an inch. Across 13 acres, that's like paving a surface the size of 10 football fields and having it as flat as a modern floor. But the true shock comes from the alignment. The four sides face the cardinal directions north, south, east, west with an error of just a fraction of a degree. This alignment to true north was so accurate, it couldn't be matched again until the invention of the compass. How they did it, the theory involves the stars, using the transit of two circumpolar stars like Kochab and Mizar to bisect the sky and find that invisible line. Celestial observation turned into terrestrial reality. The pyramid wasn't just pointing north, it was anchoring the pharaoh's journey in the bedrock of the earth. Then the material, an estimated 2.3 million blocks. Most are limestone, 2 to 3 tons each, but the interior chambers are different. The king's chamber is built from red granite. Slabs weighing between 25 and 80 tons, quarried from Aswan over 500 miles up the Nile. The logistics are staggering, no wheels. No iron tools, just copper chisels, stone hammers, and coordinated human effort. The granite blocks were likely shipped on barges during the flood season, then dragged on sledges across lubricated causeways. But the final ascent is the greatest puzzle. How you lift an 80-ton block to a height of over 150 feet and slide it into a chamber with centimeters of clearance. We have theories: grand ramps of earth and rubble spiraling around the structure, or a straight ramp colossal in its own right. Internal ramps, a corkscrew tunnel within the pyramid itself. Some propose levers and counterweights using the pyramid's own mass, but each theory has a flaw. A grand external ramp would require more material than the pyramid. An internal ramp leaves little evidence. The lever system seems too delicate for such weight. The truth is, we don't know. The method vanished with the builders. What remains is the result, a project that spanned 20 years, a society mobilized not by slavery in the simple sense, but by a rotating labor force of skilled workers. Farmers who came when the fields were flooded. They were housed, fed, organized into crews with names like the Friends of Khufu. This was a national project, woven into the rhythm of the river and the cosmos. That's the irreplicable core. With today's cranes, ships, and GPS, we could build a pyramid of identical dimensions. We could make it more precise, but we could not replicate the process. The fusion of astronomical priesthood, artisan guilds, and seasonal labor, the motivation that was not economic but spiritual, to create a machine for resurrection. A launch pad for a god-king's eternal journey. The pyramid is more than a tomb. It's a frozen moment of a civilization's total capability. Its alignment whispers of a conversation with the stars. Its stones echo with the coordinated breath of thousands, and its silence guards the final, lost manual of how to build a mountain. The pyramid's silence is about a visible, unified purpose. But some ancient things suggest another kind of knowledge, a quiet knowledge, a specialized one, something that could fit inside a clay pot. In the 1930s, workers near Baghdad found something. It didn't fit the timeline of what we think we discovered. They call it the Baghdad Battery. It's a simple assembly, a terracotta jar about 5 inches tall. Inside there's a copper cylinder sealed at the bottom with asphalt, and inside that cylinder an iron rod. These pieces were dated to the Parthian period. Roughly 2,000 years ago. At first, it looked like it could hold scrolls, but the materials suggested something else. If you fill it with an acidic liquid, vinegar, or grape juice, common things back then, this simple jar becomes something else. A primitive galvanic cell. It can produce a small electric current, about 1 volt. It's not much, but it's there. A flicker of controlled electricity from a time before the concept of electricity existed in any text we know. The implications are huge. The official history credits Alessandro Volta with inventing the first real battery in 1800. If this Baghdad object was intentional, it pushes that discovery back over 1,000 years. It forces a rewrite of a basic chapter in the story of science. So what was it for? That's the controversy that's lasted decades. The most tempting theory is electroplating. Using electricity to coat one metal with a thin layer of another, like gold. There are artifacts from the same region and period that seem to show gold plating on silver objects. A technique that, with our knowledge, would require an electrochemical process. Could a series of these jars, connected to increase the voltage, have been used in a workshop to do that? It's a compelling idea. Modern experimenters have built replicas and done exactly that, plated a small object with gold using just these ancient materials. Other theories go toward ritual or medicine. The mild shock from such a device might have been seen as a mystical force, a divine tingle used in healing or to create awe in a temple. The problem is, we have no context. No workshop was found with rows of these batteries, no diagrams, no written records explaining their use. We have the artifact and a mountain of speculation. That absence is the core of its irreplaceability. We can recreate the physical object we have. We can make it produce a volt, but we cannot recreate the intention. The understanding was this: a stumbled upon curiosity, a parlor trick by a clever artisan, or was it part of a broader, vanished tradition of electrochemical knowledge? Did a master teach an apprentice how to connect 10 jars to power a small, sacred object? We don't know. The battery sits in a museum, a closed circuit. It provides the spark, but the light it casts only shows how much we don't know. It's a ghost of a potential path, a path where the ancient world might have hummed with a quiet, practical understanding of forces we'd later claim as a modern revelation. It remains the ultimate what-if, a silent jar holding not just vinegar and metal, but a lost possibility, a question that charges the air around our whole story of progress. A quiet jar holding a lost possibility, that's one kind of mystery, but then there's the book, a book written in a language no one can read. It stared back at the best codebreakers for over 100 years. And it hasn't given up a single secret. That's the Voynich Manuscript. It's a small codex, about 240 pages of vellum, carbon dated to the early 15th century. It looks like a medieval herbal, a scientific text, but everything is wrong. The script is unknown, a flowing, elegant cipher. The characters follow grammatical patterns, so it suggests a real language. But it doesn't match any alphabet we know. The illustrations are just as strange. Pages of plants that don't exist, twisting roots, impossible leaves. Flowers from a different botany. There are astrological charts with unfamiliar constellations, diagrams of what look like biological systems, tubes and vessels connecting nude figures in these strange, fluid-filled baths. It's coherent, it has structure, sections on herbs, on astronomy, on biology, on recipes. It feels like a real encyclopedia of something, but of what? That question has consumed cryptographers and linguists and historians since it was found again in 1912. The first theory was a hoax, a clever forgery to fool a collector. But modern analysis has ruled that out. The text shows complex linguistic properties, word entropy, syllable structure. It behaves like a real language. The vellum is period correct, the ink is old. The time and cost to produce such a detailed hoax in the 15th century would have been immense for no clear payoff. It appears to be a genuine work, a complete system of communication, and we've lost the key. The entire 20th century's cryptographic genius was thrown at it. Codebreakers from both world wars, men who cracked Nazi enigma, took up the challenge. They failed. In the 21st century, advanced artificial intelligence has been trained on its patterns. Algorithms that can detect language families and decipher lost scripts have passed every curve. They've found nothing. No underlying Latin, no Arabic, no Hebrew. No known cipher method maps onto it. This isn't a locked door. It's a wall with no door at all. So what are we looking at? The theories are as strange as the manuscript. Could it be a constructed language, an early experiment in philosophical notation, meant to encode alchemical secrets away from the church? Could it represent a lost natural language from a culture that left no other trace? Or is it something more personal, the elaborate creation of a solitary mind, a work of art or therapy, a stream of consciousness given beautiful, systematic form? Each possibility is a dead end because we cannot ask the author, the techniques used to create it, the skill to draw hundreds of precise, imaginary plants, the discipline to invent a consistent written language. These aren't physically irreplicable. A talented artist and linguist could forge a similar book today, but they could not replicate the original intent, the original knowledge, if any, that it encodes. The Voynich Manuscript is not a marvel of engineering, but of cognition. It's a sealed universe, a complete thought expressed in a vocabulary we will never learn. It stands as the ultimate testament to how much can be lost, not just structures or machines, but entire ways of seeing the world, entire systems of thought that can be rendered into ink and vellum, and yet remain forever silent to anyone outside the mind that conceived them. It's a reminder the past is not just what we have found, it's also what we are forever locked out from understanding. The quiet here is different. It's the quiet of a remote island. A speck in the Pacific, more than 2,000 miles from any continent. This is Rapa Nui, Easter Island, and its silence is full of giants, the Moai. There are almost 900 of them. They aren't just statues, they're ancestors turned to stone, carved from the soft volcanic rock of the Rono-Raraku quarry. Each one is its own person, strong brows, long ears, a gaze that looks inward over the land. Some are over 30 feet tall, weigh more than 80 tons. The scale is hard to take in, but the real wonder isn't just how they were made, it's how they traveled. These huge figures were carved right on a quarry slope. Then they were moved miles across rough, rolling ground to stone platforms along the coast. The Rapa Nui people did this without metal, without wheels, without animals to pull them. Their tool was the toki, a basalt pick held in the hand. With these simple stones they shaped giants. The carving was its own feat of artistry and patience. But moving an 80-ton block of fragile rock for 6 miles, that's a puzzle, one that's captivated people for centuries. How did they do it? For a long time, the main idea was that the statues were dragged, lying down on log sledges pulled by huge crews. That theory suggests immense social coordination, a society that could organize hundreds of people to pull together, laying down and picking up a wooden road as they went. It's plausible, but the island's tree cover was sparse even back then, which raises questions about all the timber you'd need. More recently, a different idea has come from experimental archaeology. The idea that the Moai were walked, moved standing up. Teams would attach ropes to the statue's head and base. With a rhythmic pull from the sides and a steadying force behind, they could rock the figure from side to side, inching it forward in a swaying walk. It looks improbable, even dangerous, but small tests, and even one with a full-scale replica, have shown it can work. It turns the move into a kind of procession, the ancestor literally walking to its home. Yet knowing a possible method isn't the same thing. The thing we can't replicate is the totality of it. We could maybe carve a Moai with stone tools, given enough time. We could maybe walk a replica a short distance with a trained crew, but we can't replicate the Rapa Nui world. The social and spiritual engine behind the work. For the islanders, this wasn't construction, it was an act of connection. The Moai were deified ancestors. Their backs to the sea, their watchful presence ensuring the fertility and safety of the clan lands behind them. The investment was total: food, labor, artistry, all directed toward this sacred duty. The organization to feed and motivate the workers, the ritual knowledge guiding every step, the collective belief that this effort was essential for the community's survival. That whole system is gone. The statues stand now, many fallen on their platforms. They are a testament to human will and ingenuity in isolation, but they're also a reminder. The roadmap for their journey isn't just a physical path of cleared earth and worn stone. It's a path woven from faith, identity, and a society's total commitment to a vision. We can see the footprints of the giants, but we can't walk in the shoes of the people who made them move. There's a place in Bolivia, high up on the Altiplano, Tiwanaku, near Lake Titicaca, a site there called Pumapunku, the door of the Puma. What's left now is a field of shattered stone, but these fragments, they're not just broken rock. They're components, H-shaped blocks of andesite, which is a stone as hard as granite, and slabs of red sandstone, scattered like pieces of a colossal puzzle. A three-dimensional puzzle that was dropped, and if you look at any single piece, the surfaces are flawlessly flat. Not just flat, glassy smooth, the edges are razor-sharp. Perfect 90-degree angles, you see precise, shallow grooves cut into the stone, like a modern milling machine did it. Drill holes, perfectly cylindrical, bored into the andesite. Like with a diamond-tipped bit, there are intricate notches, dovetails, complex interlocking channels carved with a jeweler's precision. This doesn't look hand-chiseled. It looks machined, like something from a fabrication shop, but this site is from the Tiwanaku culture. Over 1,000 years ago, they had no iron, no steel. Their hardest metal was bronze, which is too soft to cut andesite. Their tools, as far as we know, were stone hammers, copper alloys. So how did they do this? The precision is one thing, the design is another. These H-blocks were modular units designed to interlock with each other and with other slabs using those channels and notches. Think of it like ancient, earthquake-proof Lego. A single block would have multiple points of contact, distributing weight and stress, creating a structure of incredible stability. When fitted together, they would have formed a vast tiered platform, a temple complex, something that could withstand the tectonic pressures of the Andes. But the full plan is lost. We have the pieces, but we've lost the instruction manual. The site was likely destroyed by a cataclysmic event, a massive seismic shift, or a sudden flood from Lake Titicaca. It scattered the puzzle before it was ever completed, before it was understood by later cultures. So we're left with these fragments. Modern engineers can, with diamond saws and computer-controlled routers, create identical cuts. They can replicate the physical artifact, but to do it the Tiwanaku way, that's the enigma. How do you achieve machine tool precision with stone and copper? Some suggest a lost method of thermal treatment, heating the stone surface, then cooling it rapidly to make it brittle. Others propose incredibly hard abrasive sands like quartz. Using water and patient generational labor, they might have used copper saws, but those saws would have been expendable, worn down quickly, constantly replaced. The work would have been an act of immense, sustained will, but even that doesn't fully explain the geometric perfection, the straight lines that run for meters without deviation. The flawless right angles. It implies templates, advanced measuring and marking systems, a profound knowledge of geometry, a culture that valued exactitude as a form of reverence. Pumapunku is a ruin, but its devastation is what reveals its genius. In the intact walls of Sacsayhuamán, we see the finished product. Here, we see the raw components of that same engineering philosophy. Disassembled and laid bare, each fragment is a frozen moment, a cutting technique, a joining method, a design principle we can observe but cannot truly reconstruct. It's the ghost of a blueprint, a set of perfect answers waiting for a question we've forgotten how to ask. Deep in the temple at Dendera, there's a carving on the wall. It's a bas-relief, very precise, very Egyptian, and to us now it looks like something. It looks like a light bulb, a big bulb-shaped container, and inside a snake stretched out lengthwise. The snake's head touches one end, there's a pillar holding the snake, and what looks like a cable runs from the base of the bulb to a box. A figure holds the box. The whole thing looks like a bulb, a filament, a wire, a power source. That interpretation has been debated for decades, the idea that it could be a literal device. Ancient electrical technology, something lost. It's a compelling idea. It suggests the Egyptians, or someone before them, understood incandescence, that they might have used glass vessels, evacuated or gas-filled, to make light. Which could explain how they painted deep inside tombs, far from any sunlight. People point to the lack of soot in some chambers. They point to old texts that mention light makers in vague terms. It's a story that upends our timeline of invention, but mainstream Egyptology sees it differently. They see a symbolic scene, a mythological one. The bulb is the womb of the sky goddess Nut. The snake is the god Harsomptus, a form of Horus. It's the sun's journey, the cycle of rebirth. The pillar is a jed pillar for stability. The cable is a lotus stem connecting to the breath of life. The box is a shrine, so the whole image is a spiritual metaphor for creation, for resurrection, for cosmic order, made for priests who knew its meaning. The carving itself is masterful. It's not a rough sketch, it's precise, consistent. You find variations of it throughout the temple. The craftsmen executed this intricate imagery with flawless technique. They translated a complex theological idea into stone. That skill in visual communication is its own kind of engineering. So the light bulb theory. The thing we can't replicate here isn't an object. It's a framework for understanding. If it's purely symbolic, we've lost the full context, the religious and philosophical depth that made this image clear to its original audience. We're trying to read a sacred text without the dictionary, but if by some chance the symbolism was layered, if the artists used a mythical scene to encode a real, functional diagram, then we've lost something deeper. We've lost the bridge, the way of thinking that blended spiritual truth with practical technology. To replicate the implied device, you'd first have to think like the people who might have conceived it. To see no contradiction between a snake as a sun god and a snake as a glowing filament, that's a worldview you can't rebuild in a lab. The Dendera relief asks a basic question about the ancient world. How literally do we read its art? Are we projecting our own technology onto their spiritual canvas, or were they, in their way, documenting truths we're only starting to see? The stone doesn't answer, it just holds the image, a silent switch between two completely different worlds. There's a place in Homestead, Florida, the Coral Castle. It's not actually coral, it's oolitic limestone, over 1,000 tons of it, and one man did all of it, Edward Lidskalnin. He was from Latvia, 5 feet tall, maybe 100 pounds. From 1923 to 1951, he worked alone, mostly at night, with tools he made from old car parts, a tripod from telephone poles, some block and tackle, chains. With that, he moved stones, 30-ton stones, that's like a humpback whale. He carved a 9-ton gate. It pivots so perfectly a child can push it with a finger. A 22-ton obelisk, walls, tables, chairs, a sundial accurate to 2 minutes, all by himself. He said he'd rediscovered how the pyramids were built. That he understood weight and leverage, but he never showed anyone. He worked behind a tall fence of coral blocks. If anyone came near, he'd stop. The method died with him in 1951. So how did he do it? Engineers are stumped. The straightforward idea is he was a genius with practical mechanics. Tripods, counterweights, leverage. He might have pivoted stones on a central point, used their own weight. Maybe he used water on clay to float slabs, reduce friction. He understood fulcrums, but that doesn't fully satisfy the precision, the sheer labor, one man over 28 years. It's hard to explain. That leads to other ideas. Lidskalnin wrote about magnetism, the pyramids. He thought all matter was individual magnets, that by understanding polarity you could control weight. Some think he found a way to manipulate gravity or magnetic fields, acoustic levitation, terrestrial currents. They're fascinating thoughts, but they're theory. Without proof, the real marvel of the Coral Castle might not be defying physics. It might be the peak of solitary, determined ingenuity, a modern monument to a lost technique. Because the technique was personal, it lived in one man's mind, in the calluses on his hands, in his nightly rituals. He didn't write it down, he didn't teach anyone. He built his own language in stone and took the dictionary with him. It's a reminder. Lost knowledge doesn't only happen over millennia, from conquest or disaster. It can happen in a single lifetime, in a Florida field, when a unique mind closes its doors. The castle isn't an ancient puzzle, it's a 20th century whisper. That the line between simple tools and impossible results isn't about technology, it's about understanding, and that understanding can be as fragile as a single human life. That solitary, determined work in Florida, it's a modern echo of something much older and much larger. In China, beneath the hills of Zhejiang province, there's another kind of mystery. Not one structure, but a whole world turned inside out. The Longyou Caves. They were found in 1992. Local farmers were draining a pond and they found a hole. Under that hole, a cavern, and then another and another, 24 of them total. These aren't natural, they're man-made, carved by hand from solid sandstone. Over 2,000 years ago, the scale is hard to grasp from the surface. Each cavern is a colossal hall. The largest covers more than 12,000 square meters. The ceilings are held up by massive pillars, evenly spaced. The walls, the pillars, the ceiling, every surface is covered in the same precise pattern. Parallel chisel marks, a uniform, rhythmic texture, like a giant's fingerprint pressed into the stone. This is the work of a civilization we know almost nothing about. No historical record from any dynasty mentions their construction, not a single word. It's as if a society mobilized for a generation to create a monumental secret and then agreed to forget it ever happened. The engineering questions are immense. First, the planning. How do you design and carve 24 interconnected caverns, keeping consistent wall thickness between them without modern tools or blueprints? How did they know where to stop so they wouldn't break into the next chamber? The precision suggests a master plan held in the mind of a chief architect, communicated flawlessly to the workforce. Then the labor. An estimated 1 million cubic meters of stone were removed. That's enough to fill 400 Olympic swimming pools. With what? Iron tools existed, but they would have been soft. The work would have consumed countless chisels. The debris removal alone is a puzzle. Hauling that much rock up to the surface through narrow passageways in near total darkness. Which leads to lighting. How did they see? The ceilings are high, some over 30 meters. There's no soot residue from torches, no evidence of lamp niches. Did they use polished metal mirrors to reflect sunlight deep into the tunnels? Or maybe a system of water-filled basins to cast and amplify light? We don't know. The work was done in a consistent, pervasive gloom, but the most haunting detail is the chisel marks. They're not random, they're perfectly parallel. Running in uniform bands across vast walls, that tells us the workforce wasn't a chaotic mob. It was a disciplined, organized system. Teams of workers, each with a specific task and technique, following a strict method. The marks are the signature of a lost management system. A social technology as sophisticated as the physical engineering. So why was it done? A quarry seems too simple, the stone isn't special, and the effort is too artistic. A tomb complex, but no remains or artifacts were found. A secret imperial project, yet no emperor claimed it. A ceremonial space, a granary, a refuge. Each theory falters against the silence. The caves have no inscriptions, no art, just that endless, echoing pattern on the walls. This is where its irreplaceability becomes profound. Today, with laser scanners, electric lights, and industrial excavators, we could dig a similar complex. We could even mimic the chisel marks with machines. But we could not replicate the project as it was done. The social organization that sustained it for decades, the geometric intuition that planned it without a single written diagram, the cultural purpose that justified such a staggering investment of life and labor, only to then erase all memory of it. The Longyou Caves are a negative space. A monument defined by what is missing, the missing records, the missing light, the missing reason. They are a hollowed-out question in the earth itself, waiting for an answer that may have been lost the day the last worker laid down their chisel and walked away, leaving only the echo of their labor ringing in the stone. The silence in hollowed caves gives way to thunder, impossible weight. In Lebanon, in the Bekaa Valley, the ruins of Baalbek, the secret isn't in the Roman temples up top. It's in the foundation underneath, 3 limestone blocks. They call it the trilithon, a terrace wall. Each one is a behemoth, roughly 64 feet long. 14 feet high, 10 feet thick, they weigh about 800 tons. That's 2 fully loaded jumbo jets. and they're not just lying there, they're lifted. Fitted together with precision, placed in a row 20 feet above the ground, that alone would be a Roman marvel, but a short distance away in the quarry is the real mystery. The stone of the pregnant woman, still attached to the bedrock, partially cut free, and it's colossal, over 1,650 tons, the single largest known piece of stone ever shaped by human hands. The scale isn't just impressive, it's disorienting. It challenges the physics of a pre-industrial world. The Romans built their temples on top of this platform. But many researchers now think these megaliths are older, much older, the work of a forgotten civilization, a people who mastered stone on a scale the Romans never tried. That shifts the puzzle back, deeper into time. Who were they? And more pressingly, how the process breaks down into 3 impossible steps, each one a mountain. First, quarrying. How do you detach a 1,650-ton block from the living rock without it fracturing? The theory involves patience. And wedges. Workers would carve channels around the block, then drive wooden wedges into slots. Soak the wedges with water. They expand slowly over days or weeks, creating enough pressure to crack the stone free along a clean plane. It's a plausible method, but the margin for error with that much mass is vanishingly small. One uneven crack and centuries of labor are gone. Second, transportation. The quarry is nearly a kilometer from the temple site. The ground slopes slightly upward. Moving an 800-ton block that distance is a logistical nightmare. It makes Egypt's pyramid stones seem almost portable. The consensus points to sledges. Giant wooden platforms. The block would be levered onto the sledge, then pulled on a road of lubricated wooden rollers. The manpower required is staggering. Some calculations say over 5,000 individuals, pulling on ropes, coordinated by drumbeats or chants, inching the stone forward a few centimeters at a time. The organization needed to feed and direct that army of laborers for a single stone. That's a feat of social engineering that rivals the physical one. Third and most baffling, placement. How do you lift an 800-ton block 20 feet into the air and slide it into a precise position next to its neighbors? Ramps are the go-to theory. An enormous earthen ramp would be built, the stone dragged up it, then, using levers and counterweights, painstakingly shifted sideways into its final place. But the ramp for that operation would be a monumental construction itself, requiring more material than the temple, and the process of fine-tuning the placement. With mere inches of clearance under that unimaginable weight, that's an act of courage and skill we can scarcely comprehend. This is the core of it. Baalbek's irreplaceability. With modern cranes and hydraulic transporters and laser guidance, we could, in theory, move such stones, but we would never choose to. The cost, the risk, the sheer inefficiency by today's standards makes it absurd. The builders of Baalbek weren't constrained by efficiency, they were driven by something else. A divine mandate, or the assertion of a king's eternal power, or a cultural imperative to build on a scale that would echo through the ages. They worked at the absolute limit. The limit of what human and animal muscle, with levers and ramps and ropes, could achieve. They touched that limit, and then they stopped. No one has ever tried to build with stones that large again. The megaliths of Baalbek aren't just ruins. They are a boundary marker, the furthest point humanity ever reached in its ancient conversation with gravity and stone. They stand as a silent question carved in the weight of continents, asking not just how but why. Why push so far past the reasonable? The answer is lost. All that remains is the proof that they did. Stone gives way to something more volatile, a liquid terror that once ruled the waves. For the Byzantine Empire, survival was a constant struggle. Invaders from land, invaders from sea. Their secret weapon was a legend their enemies whispered: Greek fire. It wasn't a simple flame. The accounts describe a sticky, liquid blaze. Something you could spray from ships, a fire that clung to whatever it touched, wood, sails, the surface of the water itself, and it was nearly impossible to put out. Water just made it spread. Sand could smother an ordinary flame, but this burned with its own furious life. You have to imagine the horror for a sailor. Seeing that stream of liquid fire arcing toward your ship, knowing contact meant a certain agonizing end. It was the ultimate naval deterrent for over 7 centuries. That technological advantage secured their maritime borders through the darkest hours. The secret of its composition was guarded with a ferocity to match the weapon itself. Knowledge was compartmentalized. The formula was a state secret known to a very few, maybe just a single family. The emperors understood its power lay not just in the chemistry, but in the monopoly of that knowledge. It was made in secret workshops. The components were likely sourced from different, distant regions that prevented anyone from reverse engineering the complete recipe. The delivery system was equally sophisticated. They used pressurized bronze siphons called cherosiphons mounted on the prows of their warships. These weren't simple pots of burning oil. They were early flamethrowers. They could project that fiery stream with force and accuracy. This combination, the secret chemical mixture and the specialized hardware to deploy it, that's a pinnacle of early chemical engineering. A complete weapons system lost to time, and lost it truly is. With the fall of Constantinople in 1453, the final custodians of that knowledge were lost in the conflict. The secret died with them. For centuries since, historians and chemists have tried to crack the code. We have the descriptions, but not the instructions. Analysis suggests a petroleum base, probably crude naphtha from the natural oil seeps around the Black Sea. To that, they probably added ingredients to modify its behavior. Pine resin or sulfur to make it sticky and adhesive. Quicklime, which ignites on contact with water, could explain why water seemed to fuel the flames. Saltpeter might have provided a self-oxidizing element, letting it burn even underwater. Modern teams have created working models based on these ideas. They can make a fearsome incendiary liquid that burns on water, but does it match every historical account? The consistent reports of its inability to be extinguished, its specific behavior in naval combat, these details remain just out of reach. Our modern versions are close, but they're approximations. We have not, and may never, perfectly recreate the exact Greek fire of the Byzantine manuals. This is a different kind of irreplaceability. It's not about moving mountains of stone, but about preserving a whisper of chemical knowledge. The marvel here is the system of secrecy as much as the substance. A complete technology was allowed to become extinct, not by natural disaster, but by the deliberate collapse of the political structure that nurtured and protected it. Its loss highlights a fragile truth. An advanced technology is not just a formula or a blueprint. It's a living tradition. It requires the craftsmen who know the rhythms of the mixture, the engineers who maintain the siphons, the state that funds and protects the enterprise. When that ecosystem vanishes, the technology can vanish with it, leaving behind only legends and the scorch marks of its terrible power on the pages of history. Greek fire reminds us some marvels are not meant to be rebuilt. They're cautions written in flame about how easily the light of knowledge can be snuffed out by the winds of change. The sea keeps its secrets under pressure, and in the dark, near Yonaguni Island off Japan, divers in the 80s found something, a structure or the shape of one 80 feet down. The Yonaguni Monument. From above, it looks like a sunken fortress, huge stone terraces, some over 150 meters long, like giant steps going down. The surfaces have sharp 90-degree angles, clean edges, what look like wide staircases, pillars, something that could be a carved face or a turtle. The whole thing is one piece of bedrock sandstone, and it's in a place where, during the last ice age, the sea was lower. this land would have been above water, a coastal plain. That was over 10,000 years ago. That date is where the argument starts. If it's natural, it's one of the most perfect geometric tricks in geology. If it's man-made, it changes human history. It would mean a sophisticated culture was building with monumental stone at a time when, by the books, humans were just starting to farm. The debate is about the details. Geologists point to earthquakes in the area. They say this sandstone fractures along natural plains, making these blocky shapes. They say the staircases are from differential erosion, softer rock wearing away faster. It's a strong natural case, but then divers point to things that don't fit that. A straight, narrow trench that runs for meters with parallel walls, two round holes side by side that look drilled, a column that seems like a separate rock placed on a platform. And the most striking part, at the top, two huge rectangular blocks, each hundreds of tons, placed side by side with a narrow, perfectly straight gap between them. That looks less like random fracturing and more like it was put there. If it is man-made, the questions are huge. What tools could work this bedrock 10,000 years ago? The people then, the Jaman, they're known for pottery and pit houses, not stone architecture. How could they have quarried and shaped and moved these massive features? What was it for? A ceremonial center, a fortress, a place for a ritual we don't know? There's no context, no artifacts, no carvings, just the geometry, silent and underwater. The processes are unknown. The knowledge of how to shape a submerged mountainside into terraces and stairs, if it existed, it left no other trace on land. That's the irreplaceability. We can't build it today with prehistoric methods. We don't even know if there were methods. Yonaguni is on a knife's edge. A natural wonder or an archaeological revolution, it asks a deeper question. How much of the human story isn't buried in the earth but drowned under the waves? Our coastlines changed when the ice melted. If a culture lived on those plains, now submerged, their greatest works would be hidden in the deep, slowly taken by coral and silence. Yonaguni might be a geological anomaly, or it might be the first glimpse of a lost chapter. A single page from a sunken library, waiting for us to learn how to read its waterlogged script. Some ancient stones weren't just shaped, they were transformed. In Scotland and in parts of Europe, there are these Iron Age hill forts, and they hold a secret. Their stone ramparts in certain sections have turned to glass. I mean, the rock itself has melted and fused. It's become a hard, vitrified substance. The process needs staggering heat, over 1,100 degrees Celsius. That's the temperature of a modern industrial furnace, but these forts are over 2,000 years old. From a time of simple hearths and campfires, so how could anyone generate that kind of focused, wall-consuming inferno? And more mysteriously, why would they? The effect is unmistakable. Where a normal dry stone wall uses stacked rocks, these sections are a chaotic, glossy mass. The individual stones lose their identity. They're welded together into a single, brutal slab. It's as if a dragon breathed fire along the battlements and left its breath frozen in stone. The scale varies. Sometimes it's just a small patch, other times entire lengths of wall, tens of meters long, bearing this glossy scar. The material is often granite. A hard rock which makes the feat even more perplexing. Granite doesn't melt easily. It demands a sustained, blistering heat, so the question hangs in the air. As tangible as the glassy rock itself, was this done on purpose, or was it an accident of war? The theories split along that line. One school of thought sees it as a deliberate construction technique. The idea is that builders stacked wood and other fuel against the stone walls and set a colossal fire. The goal was to fuse the ramparts into a monolithic, impenetrable barrier. A wall of solid stone glass would be incredibly strong, resistant to weathering, nearly impossible to dismantle. It would be the ultimate defensive statement. But the practical challenges are immense. Controlling a fire hot enough to melt rock across such a large area without modern bellows or insulation, that seems almost impossible. The fuel requirement would be astronomical, and the risk of the fire raging out of control or weakening the wall's structure would be high. It's a high-stakes gamble with physics. The opposing theory views the vitrification as destruction, not creation. Maybe these forts were besieged by an enemy using a form of ancient Greek fire. A terrifying, sticky incendiary that clung to the walls and burned with a heat so intense it literally liquefied the stone. Then the vitrification would be a scar of conquest, a permanent burn mark from a lost art of war. Yet no historical accounts from the region describe such a weapon, and the pattern of vitrification is sometimes selective. Not the all-consuming razing you might expect from an attack. There's a third, more symbolic idea, that these fires were ritual. The fort, perhaps at the end of its life or at the death of a chief, was ceremonially burned. The melting of the stone wasn't a practical goal, but a spiritual one, a transformative act, turning a secular stronghold into a permanent, glazed monument. A way to sanctify the site, or to prevent its use by others by rendering it otherworldly. Modern experiments have tried to solve the puzzle. Researchers have built small-scale replicas of dry stone walls. They've tried to vitrify them using only materials available in the Iron Age: timber, brush, animal fat. The results are mixed. It is possible to create localized vitrification on a small section. But achieving the widespread, deep fusion seen at sites like Tap O Noth or Craig Fadrig in Scotland has eluded them. The consistent, wall-length temperatures remain out of reach. The ancient method, if it was a method, is lost. That's the quiet marvel of the vitrified forts. They present a phenomenon we can observe and name, but not truly replicate under the same constraints. The knowledge here isn't about moving weight or achieving precision. It's about wielding an element, about commanding fire on a scale that borders on the alchemical. Whether the intent was to build, to destroy, or to consecrate, the result is the same: a line of stone that crossed a threshold from solid to liquid and back again, carrying a message in its glassy texture that we can no longer decipher. It stands as a monument to a forgotten relationship with flame, a relationship that could, for a time, make mountains weep glass. There are these stone chambers scattered through the New England woods. They look like they belong somewhere else, beehive-shaped huts built only from stacked field stones. No mortar, just stones carefully placed using a corbelled arch that curves in to make a dome. From outside, you might think it's a root cellar, but inside you see the precision. It's a perfect sheltered space, cool in summer, insulated in winter, and many of them, their doorways are aligned to catch the first light of the winter solstice sunrise. Or the summer solstice sunset. A beam of light comes in on that one day, hits the back wall. That wasn't an accident, it was a calendar, a clock built into the land. The mystery is who built them. Official history says colonial farmers for storage in the 17th and 18th centuries, but that leaves gaps. The astronomical alignments are too consistent for a farm shed. The building technique, this specific corbelled stone dome, it's ancient. You find it in Ireland, in Scotland, in Mediterranean tombs. It feels old, so there's this theory: could some be much older, built by pre-Columbian voyagers from Europe? Celtic monks maybe, or Norse explorers. They would have brought their building traditions, their knowledge of stone and stars, and built these quiet spaces in a new world. The other possibility is just as deep. That they're the work of Native American cultures, a stone-working tradition history overlooked. We know many indigenous nations here were master builders of earthworks and longhouses. Could this corbelling have been their own innovation, a local solution? The problem is, the oral histories that could confirm this were disrupted. The context was shattered. So we're left with the structures and a debate that may never settle. The engineering itself is a quiet marvel, to build a stable dome without a frame, without cement. It needs an intuitive sense of load and pressure. Each stone is chosen for its shape, placed so its weight pushes inward and down, locking the stones around it. The builder has to see the completed arch in their mind as they work from the ground up. One mistake in the curve, and the whole dome could collapse. Yet these chambers have stood for centuries, through winters, through tree roots and time. Their lessons in stability, written in stone, but to build one now misses the point. A modern mason could do it in a week, could even align the door to the solstice sun with a phone app. What they can't replicate is the lived-in knowledge. The cultural reason for that alignment: was it a ceremonial space where a community marked the sun's rebirth at the darkest time of year? Was it an observatory for a spiritual leader? A place of solitude, of connection to the cycles of the earth and sky. Without that cultural operating system, the replica is just a shell, a beautiful, empty vessel. These chambers are a different kind of ancient marvel. They're not colossal. They don't shout of empires, they whisper. They're human-scale engineering woven into the forest. Their advanced thinking isn't in moving mountains, but in marrying humble materials to celestial time. They remind us that a culture's technology can be subtle. It can be a single shaft of sunlight falling on a specific stone on a specific morning once a year. All the rest of the time, it just looks like a pile of rocks in the woods. The deepest knowledge is often like that, invisible until the moment the light hits it just right, and that moment and its meaning is what time has taken from us. The art of the sword. In the medieval Islamic world, a blade was a legend. Damascus Steel. You have these stories, crusaders facing an impossible edge. A blade that could cut a silk scarf just floating in the air, one that could bend almost in half and then spring back straight, and the surface had this pattern. A watery, flowing pattern of light and dark that wasn't just decoration. It was a fingerprint, the mark of a kind of metallurgical miracle, a combination of sharpness and durability and flexibility that modern science still can't perfectly recreate. The secret was in the metal's journey. It started in India, not Damascus, with ingots of what they called wootz steel, a high-carbon steel made in small crucibles. The magic wasn't just the carbon, it was the trace things in it, impurities, elements like vanadium from the specific ores there. They acted as catalysts. The master smith would take this ingot and begin a transformation, a precise sequence, heating, hammering, controlled cooling. They didn't have thermometers. They judged the heat by the color of the glow in a dim forge. They didn't have microscopes. They understood the metal's state by the sound of the hammer. By the feel of it, through this hands-on process, they were changing the steel's internal structure. At a microscopic level, the carbon was forced into alignment. It formed these ultra-hard carbide bands. The impurities helped control their size. The result was a composite material, a layered structure of hard and soft phases like the grain in wood. That's what gave the blade its qualities. The hard bands took the edge. The softer matrix gave it flexibility. The beautiful wavy pattern on the surface was just a map of this internal landscape. If you cut the steel, you'd see the same waves inside. Today, we can analyze a fragment. We can identify the chemicals. We can see the nanostructure. We even talk about carbon nanotubes in the steel, something the old smiths would have called the steel spirit. But knowing the recipe isn't knowing the recipe. Modern smiths can make pattern-welded steel that mimics the look. They can make incredible performance blades, but to exactly replicate the mechanical symphony of an original Damascus blade, that specific harmony of edge and toughness, it's elusive. The loss is in the nuance, the exact forging temperature at each stage, the rhythm of the hammer blows, the composition of the quenching medium, maybe a special oil. The ambient conditions of the workshop, These were variables felt in the hands of the master, passed to an apprentice through years of watching. That chain of tacit knowledge was broken. What's left is a testament to a different kind of science, a material science built in forges, not labs, where success was measured not in data but in a blade. A blade that could survive the chaos of battle and the test of time. It's a humbling reminder. Our analytical understanding is often racing to catch up. To catch up with what ancient hands, through generations of refined intuition, already knew how to make. Göbekli Tepe. It's on a hill in southeastern Turkey. A circle of stones, their pillars really T-shaped, made of limestone. Some are 16 feet tall, they weigh tons, and they were put there over 11,000 years ago. That's the thing, that date. It's 7,000 years older than Stonehenge, 6,000 years older than the pyramids. This wasn't built by farmers. It was built by hunter-gatherers, people who were supposed to be just surviving, not building temples. The pillars came from a ridge nearby. They used stone tools to get them out. Flint, basalt, then they shaped them into these T's, moved them hundreds of meters to the hilltop. No wheels, no animals to help, just people moving multi-ton stones. That alone means something. It means coordination, a shared purpose that could pull people together. But then there's the carvings on the pillars, animals. Foxes, cranes, scorpions, boars, they're detailed. A vulture with its wings spread, a snake sliding down the side. This is art, a symbolic language carved into limestone. Millennia before writing, before pottery, before farming, the site isn't a place to live, no houses, it's ritual, a ceremonial space. The T-shaped pillars might be human figures. Headless bodies, the animals could be spirits or totems, parts of a story. The circles with their paired pillars might be where rites happened, where these mobile people came together. That's the core of it. We could move the stones today, we could copy the carvings, but we can't replicate that moment, the leap it represents. This was at the very beginning. People choosing to do something immensely hard, not for food or shelter. They built a cathedral. They invested in an idea of the sacred. What was lost here isn't a technique. It's the motivation. What vision was that powerful? What story? It happened before farms, before cities. Göbekli Tepe suggests that the urge to create meaning, to build for the unseen, might not come from civilization. It might be what starts it. These pillars are at the gate of history, asking us to reconsider why we build, who we've always been. You see all these marvels, and they're all saying the same thing. The pyramids, the stone spheres in Costa Rica, Greek fire, those New England stone chambers, they weren't just things people built. They were conversations, a culture talking to its cosmos, to its materials, to itself. You notice a few things right away. First, purpose was never separate. For them, engineering wasn't a different thing from astronomy or religion. It was all one act. Aligning a temple to the sun was a surveying problem and a prayer at the same time. Carving a Moai was a logistics challenge and an act of ancestor worship. The how and the why were fused. The technical work mattered because it served a belief, a ritual, a connection to something bigger than just use. We build for function now, for cost. They built for meaning, and that fusion, we can't copy that. We can't go back into the worldview that made it necessary. Second, the knowledge of materials. This wasn't theory. It was an art learned by hand over generations. The Damascus Steel smith knew the recipe from the color of the glow, the sound of the hammer. The Inca mason understood earthquakes from the feel of a stone that rocked in its joint. The Roman concrete mixer knew which volcanic ash would make it set underwater. That knowledge was tactile, observational, passed down through doing. It was a deep literacy in the physical world, written in calluses. We've replaced that with formulas, with digital models. We know more universally, but we've lost the intimate, place-specific genius of the craft. Third, the social engine. These projects needed more than clever designers. They needed societies that could coordinate on a huge scale. The rotating crews for the pyramids, the teams that carved the Longyou Caves, the thousands pulling the Baalbek stones. That was a social technology, an ability to organize, to motivate, to sustain effort toward a goal that took decades, even generations. The motivation wasn't wages. It was duty, faith, community, service to a king. We could never replicate that social contract. Our projects are managed. Theirs were collectively willed into being by a shared cosmology. And that's the heart of it. It's rarely about the object itself. We can make a sphere, a sharp sword, a geometric wall. What we can't recreate is the whole system. The complete ecosystem of knowledge, belief, social structure, and intimacy with the environment that created it. That system is the real marvel, and losing it is a lesson. It tells us technological progress isn't a straight line always going up. It's a fragile, branching tree. Whole limbs of understanding can wither and fall away, leaving only the fossil behind. A culture shifts, an empire falls, a master dies without an apprentice, and an entire way of solving problems vanishes. These silent stones, these rustless metals, they challenge our modern pride. They suggest our ancestors, in their holistic way, had forms of knowledge that were in some ways more attuned, more sustainable, more integrated with their world than ours. They solved for eternity, not for quarterly reports. They worked with the grain of nature and belief, not against it. This isn't romanticizing the past, which had its own hardships. It's acknowledging a sobering truth. Advancement isn't guaranteed. Knowledge isn't permanent. We stand on a peak, yes, but the path that got us here is only one of many that once wound through the landscape of human possibility. These 20 marvels are signposts from the lost trails. They remind us to walk with a little more humility, to listen more carefully for the echoes of other ways of knowing. Because the greatest wonder they offer might not be how they were built. It might be what their silence is trying to teach us about the fragility of our own achievements. That quest for understanding, maybe that's the final marvel. Looking back at these 20 ancient wonders, you see this whole tapestry of human ingenuity. It's inspiring and it's humbling. We saw stones that could dance with earthquakes, metals that wouldn't corrode, machines that could compute the cosmos from a time before we thought that was possible. Each one is a monument, a testament to the creativity, the sheer determination of our ancestors. They'd look at a mountain and see a temple. They'd look at the stars and build a calendar. They turned belief into geometry. They turned willpower into weightless stone. But these structures, they're more than testaments. They're silent challenges. They question our modern story of progress, the linear one. They whisper that capability isn't about the tools in your hand. It's about the vision in your mind. The unity in your community. They show us that whole chapters of human knowledge, entire ways of seeing the world, of solving it, can just fade into silence, leaving behind only their most durable echoes. This isn't a story of primitive attempts. It's about peaks achieved, along paths we don't walk anymore. Let these wonders be a reminder. History isn't a simple story of then and now. It's a deep, dark well of mystery. The water at the bottom, it doesn't just reflect facts. It reflects possibilities. It shows us glimpses of what humans can do when they're driven by faith, by a collective purpose, by a deep conversation with their environment. That perspective encourages a curiosity, a respectful one. It asks us to look at the past not as a defeated opponent, but as a teacher, a wise one, even if it's silent. So we'll leave you with a question, an invitation. Which of these marvels resonated with you the most? Was it the silent computer from the sea, or the giants walked across an island? The unrusting pillar, or the fire that burned on water? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear which puzzle captures your imagination. And if you want more journeys into our shared past, be sure to subscribe. Remember, the greatest engineering feat might not be what we build today with all our technology. Sometimes it's the enduring quest, the humble one, to understand what was built yesterday with nothing but ingenuity, patience, and a vision that could move mountains.